In 2021, a homeowner in Fillmore County, Minnesota, had his building permit revoked. Not because his structure was unsafe, not because it violated a setback. The county red tagged it because his basement heating system, a passive earth-tempered design, didn't include a furnace, a heat pump, or any mechanical heating equipment whatsoever. The code, written in 1958, assumes those things exist. That same winter, his home held 64 degrees Fahrenheit. His neighbors paid an average of $380 a month in heating bills. He paid nothing. This isn't a trick. It isn't a loophole. It's a physical principle that has been quietly sidelined by building standards written before most of us were born. Standards that happen to require the purchase of equipment that generates billions of dollars in recurring revenue for the people who had a seat at the table when those standards were drafted. Here's what they didn't want you to understand. 8 feet below the surface of the earth, any surface, anywhere in the contiguous United States, soil temperature stabilizes. It doesn't track winter. It doesn't track summer. According to USDA agricultural soil temperature data maintained across all 48 contiguous states, the ground at 8 feet holds a consistent 50 to 58 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, regardless of what the air above it is doing. In Minnesota, where surface temperatures swing from minus 30 in February to 90 in July, the soil at 8 feet sits at roughly 52 to 54 degrees, every month, every year, decade after decade. An earth-tempered basement doesn't heat your home. It borrows heat the planet has already stored. The soil is the thermal battery. The structure simply allows you to spend it. This principle isn't new, and it isn't experimental. The ancestral Puebloans of the American Southwest, building in a climate zone that shares the same brutal seasonal swing as the high plains of Minnesota, were constructing underground sleeping chambers at Chaco Canyon before 900 AD. Norse longhouse builders in Iceland and coastal Norway, working at climate zone 7 latitudes matching northern Minnesota, buried their living structures into hillsides deliberately, using the Earth's stable temperature to offset brutal winters with no firewood at all in the sleeping quarters. The technique has been documented in Scandinavian vernacular architecture for over 1,000 years. In the modern era, the Underground Space Center at the University of Minnesota published a longitudinal study in 1981 documenting that Earth-sheltered homes in their test group used between 60 and 78% less heating energy than comparable above-grade construction in the same climate zone. That research exists. It has never been refuted. It simply stopped being discussed. So why haven't you heard about this? In the late 1940s, the Federal Housing Administration published its Minimum Property Standards. The 1949 edition required homes to be constructed above finished grade. That language was developed with participation from the National Association of Home Builders, the National Lumber Manufacturers Association, and the Portland Cement Association, the organizations that profit from above-grade wood frame and concrete construction had a direct hand in writing the definition of a financeable home. By 1958, that above-grade assumption had been folded into model building codes, initially as a fire egress requirement for sleeping rooms, not as a prohibition on passive thermal systems, but most local jurisdictions expanded the interpretation, and most county building departments today enforce it without ever reading the original statutory language it came from. Here's the paradox at the center of this. The structure they call a code violation is the only one in the county that didn't need a furnace this winter. The Fillmore County build from 2021, independently documented by the owner, cost $68,000 in materials for 1,400 square feet of finished living space. According to RS Means 2024 residential construction data for rural Minnesota, a code-compliant above-grade home of equivalent square footage runs approximately $214,000 at contractor pricing. The earth-sheltered owner build came in at $48 per square foot in materials with no mechanical heating system. Annual heating cost, $0. Annual electricity cost, approximately $240 for lighting and appliances. 2 structures. Same county, same winter. One paid $380 per month to stay warm. The other paid nothing. Before you pay another utility bill, understand this, that $380 per month isn't going to warmth. It's going to a service model that requires your equipment to be purchased, installed, maintained, and replaced on a 15 to 20 year cycle by licensed contractors whose livelihood depends on your continued dependence. Your county building department isn't conspiring against you. Most inspectors have simply never processed a passive earth-sheltered structure. The code pathway that permits it, IRC Section R302.13, which allows alternative fire protection equivalency reviews, exists in the International Residential Code. Most building departments have never applied it because no one has ever asked them to. They default to denial because denial is the path of least resistance for a system built around the assumption of mechanical equipment. The National Association of Home Builders generates most of its advocacy budget from members who build above-grade wood frame homes. A construction method that eliminates the contractor entirely doesn't have a trade association lobbying for its permit pathway. Now here is how to actually build one. The legal entry point depends on where you live. 22 states currently maintain owner-builder exemptions, allowing you to construct a primary residence without a licensed general contractor. Separately, 38 states exempt structures on working agricultural parcels from residential building codes entirely, meaning an earth-sheltered structure framed as farm storage with living quarters on an agricultural parcel may not require a residential permit at all. And in virtually every jurisdiction in the country, structures under 160 square feet require no permit. Start there. Build an earth-tempered root cellar at that scale. Document its thermal performance over one winter, and you have the data your building department will need when you scale up. Here is the actual construction sequence, and where most owner builders go wrong. Excavate first, and before you pour a single wall, install a perimeter drain at the base of your excavation, a 4-inch perforated pipe in a gravel bed, sloped to daylight or to a sump. This is where most people make their most expensive mistake. They skip the drainage and rely on waterproofing membrane alone. That does not work. No membrane compensates for hydrostatic pressure without drainage relief underneath it. By the time you discover the error, you have already backfilled. For a 1,000 square foot footprint at 8 feet depth, expect excavation costs of $3,200 to $6,800, depending on soil type, based on RS Means 2024 excavation rates. Hard pan or rocky soil adds $1,000 to $1,500. Form your walls with insulated concrete forms, or ICFs. Nudura and Fox Blocks are two of the largest ICF manufacturers in North America, with dealer networks across the US and Canada. At owner supply pricing, ICF forms run $4.20 to $5.80 per square foot in materials, compared to $9 to $14 per square foot sourced through a general contractor. The markup is real. Your exterior waterproofing layer is non-negotiable. HDPE dimple board, sold under brand names including Delta MS from Cosella Dorkin and Platon from Ranelagh, creates a drainage plane between your concrete wall and the backfill that prevents hydrostatic pressure from saturating the wall. Expect $1.80 to $2.40 per square foot at supply direct pricing. Backfill in compacted lifts of no more than 12 inches. Install your roof deck and cover with a minimum of 24 inches of compacted earth. At that depth, the effective R value of the soil layer above reaches R20 to R30 depending on moisture content without any added insulation product. Total material cost for a 1,000 square foot earth-sheltered structure built to this specification, $28,000 to $44,000 in owner-sourced materials. No furnace, no heat pump, no service contract. At the engineering level, here is what is actually happening. Soil has a thermal diffusivity of approximately 0.09 square meters per day, meaning the temperature wave from the surface travels downward at roughly half a meter per month. By the time winter's cold front has penetrated 8 feet into the earth, spring has already begun warming the surface again. The two waves cancel. The soil at depth tracks only the mean annual surface temperature, never the seasonal extreme. In a Minnesota climate with a mean annual surface temperature of 44 degrees Fahrenheit, the soil at 8 feet holds 52 to 54 degrees, always. The concrete floor and walls act as a thermal flywheel, absorbing that stable earth temperature and radiating it continuously into the interior air. No combustion, no electricity, no recurring cost. The earth doesn't generate heat. It just refuses to let it go. The Malcolm Wells Underground Studio in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, built in 1964 and occupied continuously, operated on this principle for over 40 years with zero supplemental heating. The Ouroboros House at the University of Minnesota, built in 1977 and monitored by engineering faculty, documented a 78% reduction in heating energy against a code minimum above-grade structure in the same climate zone. These are measured, published results sitting in university archives. Earth-tempered construction works because the physics of soil temperature are indifferent to building codes. It got sidelined because the 1949 FHA Minimum Property Standards made above-grade construction the condition of a federally backed mortgage, written with direct input from the industries that profit from it. And a 1,000 square foot version of this structure costs between $28,000 and $44,000 in owner-sourced materials, with no mechanical heating and no recurring energy cost for the life of the building. Your action step this week: search your state name plus owner-builder exemption and your state name plus agricultural building exemption. Write down which applies to your parcel. Then open your county's zoning map, most are available online, and confirm whether your land is classified as agricultural, rural, residential, or residential. That single distinction determines which legal pathway is available to you before you spend $1 on materials. If you want to run the numbers on a 160 square foot pilot build, Fox Blocks and Cosella Durkin both publish dealer pricing through their websites. Most people are genuinely surprised at what the total looks like. Have you ever looked into earth-sheltered or underground home design? Would you build one if the legal path was clear? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to keep discovering the home designs that building codes have quietly buried, subscribe. I uncover these suppressed structures every week.